interpretación simultánea y consecutiva en español. Si necesita servicios de interpretación, puede ir prestado un audífonos y un receptor portátil de nuestra mesa en la entrada. Igualmente tenemos intérpretes listos si desea hacer una pregunta o presentar un comentario en español. Por favor, debe devolver el equipo de interpretación en la misma mesa o alguno de nosotros. Muchas gracias.
Good evening, we are Mandarin interpreter. 晚上好，我们跟市长移民事务办公室今天晚上提供我们的同声翻译还有连贯的翻译。如果你需要这个翻译的服务，请到后面领取耳机。还有当提问的时候，我们也提供这个连贯性的翻译服务。完成之后，请把耳机归还到前面的那个接待处，谢谢。Thank you.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Tom Wirtschafter. I'm the president of Town Hall, and we're very excited to host this event. Almost 100 years ago, the League of Political Education, a women's suffragists group, built Town Hall as a meeting house for all New Yorkers, a public forum for the free discussion of political and civic matters, where all sides would have equal privileges and where any law-abiding citizen could voice their opinion on the affairs of the day. How appropriate that the mayor's Office of Nightlife would choose to hold its Manhattan listening tour here. The architects, McKim, Mead and White, built the hall so that everybody had an unobstructed view. The moniker was not a bad seat in the house. And they designed the auditorium following the principles of Wallace Sabine, who developed the science of how to build halls with optimum reverb. It meant that with a normal speaking voice, you could have dialogue, conversation, no matter where you sat, on the stage or in the audience. When the hall opened, it was clear the acoustics that they had built for the human voice were also perfect for music as well. So Town Hall hosted the debuts of Strauss and Stravinsky and Marian Anderson and Billie Holiday, Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker's first bebop concert, Nina Simone, Bob Dylan, and countless other concerts and dances and poetry reading, and so many more events. And at the same time, public meetings continued and Town Hall has had its share of controversy. Margaret Sanger was arrested for talking about birth control here in 1921. Norman Mailer and Jermaine Greer debated the women's movement, and protests and rallies have been part and parcel of Town Hall for over 97 years. But we welcome you to Town Hall tonight and thank the Office of Nightlife for inviting us to host tonight's program. We ask that you honor the history of the hall and have a conversation with respect, and remember, you don't have to shout to be heard here. Now it's my honor and privilege to introduce the Commissioner of the Mayor's Office for Media and Entertainment, Julie Menin. Commissioner Menin oversees the city's agency that encompasses the key economic and creative sectors of film, theater, TV, music, advertising, publishing, nightlife, and digital content. In total, these portfolios account for over 305,000 jobs and an economic output of over 104 billion. In addition, she also oversees NYC Media, the largest municipal broadcasting entity in the country, including 5 TV channels and a radio station with a reach of 18 million viewers. Please join me in welcoming Commissioner Julie Menin.
Thank you so much, Tom, for that incredibly kind introduction, and thank you for hosting us in this beautiful historic town hall. And I love that line, "You don't have to shout to be heard." I may have to use that with my kids. In any event, I am so thrilled to be here tonight, and I really want to thank all of you for coming out. As some of you know, I chaired Community Board 1 in Lower Manhattan for 7 years. I love town hall meetings. I love community meetings. I'm so thrilled that all of you could join us here today, and I can assure you that this is, of course, not the only opportunity to interact with us on this issue. Our door is always open. We really want to hear from you. I also want to thank our fantastic partners in government who are here tonight. So our wonderful Manhattan Borough President, Gail Brewer, who's here, Councilmember Carlina Rivera, Councilmember Keith Powers, Assemblymember Harvey Epstein, Councilmember Rafael Espanola, and I hope I did not leave anyone out. You'll be hearing from each of them in a minute. And I also want to thank the city agencies who you'll be hearing from very shortly as well. So I've served as commissioner of the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment for about 2.5 years. Prior to that, I served as commissioner of the Department of Consumer Affairs. You heard from Tom in terms of what MOM covers, and I'm mentioning this because a lot of questions we get are the Office of Nightlife, and is it housed in the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment, or how that works? So I thought I would just take a minute to explain that. So the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment, as Tom mentioned, encompasses the key creative sectors of film, of TV, of music, advertising, publishing, digital content, and then, of course, we run 5 TV stations, including the flagship Channel 25. We've been very focused on increasing economic opportunities for those that have traditionally been left out of the system. So, for example, we've got a $5 million fund for women filmmakers, for women playwrights. We're about to launch a big advertising campaign for independent theaters. We have dozens and dozens of programs. There's information on the table if you're interested. In terms of the Office of Nightlife, it is housed in the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. As most of you know, the Office of Nightlife was created in 2017 from the City Council bill introduced by Councilmember Espanola. The mayor signed the bill September 2017. The Office of Nightlife, and you'll hear this from the Senior Executive Director, Ariel Palitz, has a staff of 4 people, and she'll talk a little bit about that. We are really looking for ideas, and we very much welcome your feedback. I'll briefly mention 2 concerns I heard from community meetings I had. One concern I heard was that people felt the notification signs around liquor licenses were not that visible, they didn't have enough information, and so we addressed that issue by creating new signage for community boards that are interested in having that. We have that. Some boards have started utilizing that. So that is one community concern I heard, and we acted on that. Secondly, I heard a concern from some community folks that they wanted to have a more of an advisory role. So I'm happy to say we're delighted to create a community panel to the Office of Nightlife for any members of the audience who are interested in serving on such a panel. Either let any of the staff members know who are at the table in front, or if you prefer email, you can email nightlife@media.nyc.gov and give your contact information. And then I really just want to end by thanking you for taking the time. We know everyone has a busy schedule, and we really appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good evening. I'm Jose Sogard, Deputy Director for the Office of Nightlife. And real quick, before we get to our program, just want to go over some general house rules. You'll have seen them on the screen as you are arriving. Please turn in your comment card if you wish to speak tonight as soon as possible, so that we can manage public speaking in an orderly way. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak, and we ask that you please be respectful of everyone's time and each other. If you are not able to speak tonight, you can submit your comments via email, as the Commissioner just said, which we will have on screen throughout the night. Thank you, and now I would like to reintroduce the President of Town Hall, Tom Wirt Chapter.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you. Well, since 1975, Gail Brewer has worked tirelessly on behalf of New Yorkers, focusing on our lives, our health, and our welfare. We're a better city because of people like Gail. She's a true civil servant who I'm convinced has figured out how to be in 2 places at the same time, or at least the subway system timetables to make it look that way. I'm delighted to welcome to the Town Hall stage our very own Manhattan Borough President, Gail Brewer.
Good evening, and thank you all for being here. I want to thank Ariel Pouts and her amazing staff, and also to thank Julie Menin and all of you for turning out and for all the outreach. It's a good, big turnout tonight. All the community boards worked on it. So thank you, and thank you to all the outreach that has been done. And I'm here just like you to listen. I'm very appreciative of this new office and the opportunity to be part of tonight's town hall. Nightlife is incredibly important. It's billions of dollars, as you know, but at the same time, in a crowded borough like Manhattan, where we all live, work, and play right next to each other, we're all concerned about the noise and other issues that get raised. But think about it, 653 new liquor licenses were issued in Manhattan just this year, January 1st to October 17th. And there were about 8,000 liquor licenses active in Manhattan, according to the State Liquor Authority open data, more than any other county. Those of you from Brooklyn, we have more in Manhattan, just so you know. Second place is Brooklyn. Sorry, Brooklyn, with about 2/3 as many, but Brooklyn has 1 million more residents, and Brooklyn is 3 times larger in land mass than Manhattan. So obviously the numbers that I gave you include stores, not just nightlife, but the number makes the point. We have a lot going on in our beloved Manhattan, and it means that there'll be some complaints. So just between January 1st of this year and now, we've had nearly 7,000 complaints on 311 about clubs and bars and restaurants. But the good news, and it's much thanks to many people in this room, those numbers have been steadily decreasing since 2014, when we had 10,000 complaints. I have great faith that you, the members of the advisory board, the amazing agencies here tonight, will help those numbers decrease further while helping nightlife thrive, because it is very much the economic engine in our city. I want to thank all the agencies, because there are a lot of ways in which they are helping to figure out how to make these issues successful for all residents. Agencies are using technology, everything from one-stop websites to customized 311 dashboards, so complaints can be accurately recorded, handled, and tracked. And I feel very proud of that, because I'm the author of the open data bill in the city council. And I always say my favorite activity is going to a civic hackathon. I might be the only one that loves that. The agencies are working collaboratively, working with NYPD and others on ways to target nightlife issues, and working with agencies like DOT, Disney, and DEP on addressing neighborhood concerns about nightlife activities. I know that DEP attorneys are particularly knowledgeable about this. All of the agencies are using education and mediation as tools, so there are steps between complaints and enforcement, so we don't lose the businesses that give the borough its personality and character. And all the agencies are willing to be creative in their approach. They are working on pilot projects with the business improvement districts, and I know that Tim Tompkins and others are here tonight. From the bids, and these agencies are working to better coordinate with each other and nightlife establishments. Usually when I talk about the value of nightlife in Manhattan, I talk about how it is a multi-million-dollar industry with many jobs. I'm way off. Nightlife is a $48 billion industry with a B, and it employs 128,000 people just in Manhattan, even before we talk about Brooklyn. So the discussion tonight is important. It is really important to have you here tonight. It's important for our quality of life, for our neighborhoods, for people's livelihoods, and most importantly, for our city's economic health. So I, again, thank you all. I thank Rosie Mendez, who's the Director of Community Affairs in our office and a former colleague of mine in the City Council, and I'm delighted to be working with her. Thank you for joining us, and please make sure that you express every idea you have. Thank you very much.
Please welcome New York City Councilmember Keith Powers.
Thank you, and good evening. And I share Gail Brewer's love of Manhattan and her willingness to put down other boroughs. I'm just kidding if you're from somewhere else. But I am Councilmember Keith Powers. You're actually in my district here. I represent East and West Midtown, including right up to Times Square, the Upper East Side. I go all the way down to Stuyvesant Town, Peter Cooper. Just in way of a background, I'm actually the son of a restaurant owner who's in the business for 30 years or so. I also, maybe on the flip side for some, was also the chair of a community board 6's committee around nightlife. So I have really seen, I think, very different sides of this conversation, and that's why we're here tonight. And this is why actually the city council and my colleague Rafael Espanola, you're going to hear from shortly, decided to have an Office of Nightlife and to have events like this, because for years and for decades probably, these arguments, this tension that has gone on between communities who sometimes feel like their backs are up against the wall, for operators who feel like they have no voice in city or state government, these have played out. They played out in elected officials' offices, they played out at community board meetings, and there's really been no good landing spot to have a real serious conversation about how do we help those who want to be in business here? How do we make sure they have a livelihood here? How do we take government off of your backs when it doesn't belong there? How do we make sure that somebody whose dream wants to play out here in New York City has the ability to do so? And how do we also look at those who live in and around neighborhoods that feel saturated, those who live above places, those who feel overdone at times? How do we give them a voice as well? And I think that this meeting tonight and the Office of the Nightlife is an opportunity to do that and to have a serious conversation outside of the fights, but to have a longer conversation about what policies make sense, how do we help those who feel saturated or overburdened, and how do we give all those who are here, I think see many of them, who have made this their life, and really do contribute to our economy and to the employment in New York City. How do we make sure you have a voice in city government? How do we make sure we have policies that help achieve those goals? So I am very happy to be here. I will be able to stay for a little bit and hear some of the questions. I'm joined by many good colleagues here, but I want to say thank you to all the agencies who are here. Thank you to Ariel and the Office of Nightlife for hosting us. I see many of the good partners here and the board members as well. And I will mention one thing is I do believe this is a very big part of our tourism economy and the dollars that are driven to this city by the virtue of people wanting to be here, wanting to live here, but also visit here. We are tomorrow actually having a hearing at the City Council to talk about tourism and economic development and economic growth, something I asked for and we'll be hosting tomorrow. And this is a big part of it. It's how do we keep people here? How do we keep jobs here, good paying jobs? How do we create a vibrant economy? And instead of just saying it's New York, everybody wants to be here, how do we actually have a long-term policy? So I invite everybody to be there tomorrow if you have the time. I know many of you are running businesses or doing other things, but it's 1 o'clock, it's at One World Trade Center, and we'd love to have all your voices in that conversation about your contribution and your concerns about tourism, economic growth, nightlife, and so forth. So thank you all for being here. I always say you can be doing anything in New York City on any given night, but to be part of a public conversation is a really important way to spend your evening. So thank you for being here tonight. And of course, if our office as a city council can ever be helpful to this conversation, you certainly know we will be. So thank you. Thanks so much.
Please welcome New York City Council member Carlina Rivera.
Hello, everyone. It's my Broadway debut, so thank you so much. Might be my first and last, so I'll try to make it count. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank you so much for being here. I have to thank Julie Menin and Ariel Palitz, the advisory board, and all of the people that are here, whether you're a community board member or you're part of a block association or a civic group. I want to thank you because it's because of you that we felt like this industry really needed something more. We need the Office of Nightlife to really take into account all of the issues that were previously mentioned by all of my wonderful colleagues. It's how nightlife contributes to the economy. It's how do we get a good night's sleep? It's how do we make sure that small businesses can survive in a city that is very, very associated with service? And so how do we make sure that these are good businesses with great jobs and responsible operators, and we feel not only proud of our blocks, but safe of the streets that we are walking on. So why I think this tour was so important is because I think all of us have a different definition of nightlife. For me, I think of it as listening to a live salsa band with my mom, or date night with my husband when we can coordinate one, and having a cocktail with my sister, who's a bartender. And so I think for me, having creative places and safe spaces to go where you can see multimedia and you can see innovative and awesome things is really important. And I think what's really critical is that nightlife, and these are small businesses. These are people who had dreams. These are outlets for the immigrant community and the LGBTQ community. And I think that it's important that we all have a place to kind of showcase what we are and what makes this city so special. So for me, when I think about nightlife and the small business angle, they're going through the same challenges as the daytime businesses that we so desperately want to fill these vacant storefronts. So whether it's navigating government or just dealing with property taxes or really making sure that you're responding to the market and how it's changing, whether it's e-commerce or how the city, again, is kind of going through its own evolution that it goes through. I think it's important that we respond to what I think is a really, really important industry. And so together, I'm hoping that we could work on improving this really critical field, and that there is interagency communication. Because working in the city council and working for my amazing predecessor who is here, Rosie Mendez, it's really interesting to see how bureaucracy can make things difficult. And I think having everyone here and having a leader like Ariel and Julie Menin is going to be so important. They went through extreme lengths to coordinate this effort, multilingual outreach, working with community boards and district managers, and I have to give a quick shout out to Susan Setzer, who's here, the block associations and the local stakeholders to make sure that this crowd is diverse and that we get different stories and different experiences. And so when I think about what we can do in the city council, of course we can fund groups that are organizing around quality of life issues, and we could also pass really responsible legislation. And what I think is going to be important when we're looking at nightlife, as I'm the co-chair of the Women's Caucus in the City Council, and recently we passed a package of bills around sexual harassment. I think when we talk about nightlife, we have to consider the 52% of the people in this city, women, who go through a very different experience. So I'm hoping that tonight and throughout the tour and some of the recommendations, we really discuss each and every individual experience when it comes to nightlife. I think for myself, as someone who's been out, sometimes you go to places that are packed with women, right? They make sure that the places are full of ladies and that there's a certain ambiance. And if you have a responsible operator, they're making sure that regardless of who you are, whether you are a man or a woman or whatever your orientation or identity is, that you feel safe. And so I think that goes for the people inside of the establishments, and it goes for the people outside of the establishments. So I'm hoping that today, along with some legislation that we're proposing at the city council level around sexual harassment, around being a responsible nightlife operator, and of course, in tandem with some of my colleagues who are here tonight, and of course, Rafael Espanola, council member from Bushwick, we're gonna be able to really look at the state of storefronts in our communities, how we can fill those with responsible operators, but also foster independent artist communities, whether it's DIY or it's a cultural iconic institution in my district like La Mama. So I think that we have a very unique opportunity here, along with some tremendous talent, to have conversations on how to utilize the relationships and all the groups that are already out there doing the work and making sure that you feel heard. So I'm really excited. I was a community board member for a few years, and I am a proud Lower East Side resident, and we have our own share of issues. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. So I want to tell you all thank you. Thank you to the Office of Nightlife. Thank you to the City Council and, of course, the City of New York for taking this step. I think it's progressive. I think it's the right thing to do. And I'm looking forward to not only feeling good about a night out, but feeling good about a good night's sleep. Thank you so much.
Please welcome New York City Councilmember Rafael Espanola.
What's up, everyone? What's up, everyone? It's great to be here. It's great to see there's a full house out here to join this conversation. Before I move forward, I just know Gail Brewer was talking about how Manhattan has the most bars and clubs in the city, but I remember Borough President Eric Adams in Brooklyn saying that Brooklyn is the only borough where our electricity bill goes up at night compared to the rest of the city. So Brooklyn is really the city that never sleeps, just so you all know. Sorry. But I just want to say it's great to be here. It's great to see the progress of this office. From the moment I pushed the bill forward to create this office, the idea I had was bringing all stakeholders together to talk about the issues that they have with nightlife management in general. So this means the community, this means the bar owner, this means the community that depends on those venues and places to be open, and how do we all come together and talk about how we can all be better partners so that those who want to sleep can sleep and those who want to stay up can stay up without over-enforcement. And it's vital. You know, we are the city that never sleeps. The reason that people want to live here, do not move away from here, come to move here, is because of the culture that our nightlife has created over the years. And I think that's what's important to think about as we move forward. When I created this office, I had a big concern, and it was that I was seeing a lot of these iconic venues closing their doors, and it's just not about the economic parts of it. Yes, that's important, but for me, it was these cultural institutions where artists were being bred from, where communities were coming together, where innovation and social movements were actually happening. Think about Stonewall, think about the Harlem Renaissance in the 30s, think about house music, dance culture. It all happened here in New York because of these venues, these spaces. So how do we all work together to ensure we can keep that while also ensuring that people feel respected as well? And just to put this into context, this office was created in Amsterdam in 2014. The most notorious place, right? We all know Amsterdam to be a very crazy place where nightlife is what drives the economy there. And they've seen a decrease in noise complaints and quality of life issues by 30% in the past 4 years. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here as well. It's how do we decrease quality of life complaints so that businesses and the communities within those businesses all feel respected and can all coexist. So that's the goal, and I am proud that we were able to get to this point. This is only the beginning. This is about listening to everyone and then figuring out how do we put policy forward to make sure everyone's respected. So I really want to introduce Ariel Pallets. I did not ever meet Ariel Pallets before she was candidate for the office. I heard her story and I heard why she felt it was important for her to take on this role. And I have to say that from what I've heard, she wanted to take a real balanced approach because as a community board member and as a bar owner and as a New Yorker, she understood the importance of the ecosystem of all those three and the role they play. So further without ado, I want to call up Ariel Pallets.
Thank you. No pressure. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you to Rafael. And thank you, of course, to the Manhattan Borough President, Gail Brewer, Commissioner Julie Menin, and to all the elected officials who have shown up here tonight. To all of you in the audience, this is the partnership, this is the team, all of us who are going to work together to solve the issues surrounding nightlife. I also want to thank Tom and Town Hall for hosting us this evening. It is an honor to be in this historic room where so many important conversations have taken place before us for decades. Of course, I also want to thank all of you for taking the time to be here tonight. For those of you who don't know me, I am Ariel Pallets, the Senior Executive Director for the Office of Nightlife. I am a native New Yorker. I owned and operated a lounge in the East Village for 10 years. I served on the Liquor Licensing Committee of a community board for 6 years.
and I also live above a bar. So I'm here because I've been there. I am grateful to be able to use my life's experience to serve in this administration and the city that I love, to support nightlife culture and economy, to facilitate quality of life, and to protect self-expression. The Office of Nightlife was established to ensure that nightlife works for all New Yorkers. We are a liaison between city agencies and resources, nightlife operators, employees, performers, patrons, advocates, and residents. We are here to work together with everyone to find a common ground so that we can coexist and thrive. This is the 5th of our 5-borough listening tour to hear your comments, concerns, and ideas. Its purpose is to help inform our office as we develop initiatives and recommendations. So far, these meetings have been a positive and productive discussion between elected officials, city and state agencies, the nightlife and residential communities. I would like to assure everyone that this administration and this office are very much aware of the issues we'll be discussing tonight. It is why this office was established. It is why we are here, to put our heads together to come up with solutions. To better understand New York's Office of Nightlife, it is important to put it into a global context. New York is now part of a global movement, a United Nations of nightlife. There are now more than 40 cities around the world that are working to proactively manage their nightlife and nighttime economies, including London, Paris, Vienna, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, and Detroit. Last month, Washington, D.C. announced that they will be establishing their own Office of Nightlife. These offices are getting results. In Amsterdam, they have achieved quality of life improvements like a 30% reduction in crime and a 28% reduction in noise complaints. Berlin recently announced government investment in soundproofing at venues and clubs. New York has joined this movement because it also recognized nightlife's significance in our city and our place in the world. But we know that New York is not like other cities in the world. With a growing population of 8.6 million people and 62.8 million annual visitors that are attracted to our energy and our culture. We are a 24/7 city, and nightlife is the other 9 to 5. New York's nightlife is an ecosystem that includes us all. While many bars, clubs, and restaurants are small businesses that provide local jobs and places to socialize, it is also essential to recognize the importance of sleep in the city that never sleeps. Nightlife is vital to our economy, our identity, and our culture. And New York has given rise to movements that have impacted the world, like disco, hip hop, and rock and roll. Nightlife is where people come to life, where they gather to create, to celebrate, to fall in love, and to let go. It is also where we can look out for each other. It is essential to protecting our diversity. In many cases, it can be the front line for social justice and human rights, because for some people, nightlife is their whole life, a safe place to come together and to be themselves. In order to better understand the economic value of nightlife, the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment is releasing a nightlife economic impact study by the end of this year. Here are some facts and figures we can preview tonight. Nightlife supports nearly 300,000 jobs in New York, $48 billion in local economic impact, and nearly $700 million in tax revenues. The creation of the Office of Nightlife is an opportunity for a new approach to appreciate everything that nightlife contributes to New York, while also addressing its challenges and impacts. We are looking for systemic solutions and to find a balance. We want to support nightlife with resources and education to help establishments be more successful in order to be better neighbors and employers. We want to ensure safety and quality of life for everyone and to enable creativity and culture to thrive. We understand that the issues surrounding nightlife are personal, costly, and complex. But at the end of the day, or at the end of the night, we share many of the same goals. The one thing we can all agree upon is that we all love New York, and we all want a vibrant and livable city. And although there are many perspectives on how we may get there, what is most important is that we do. And through coordination, communication, and cooperation, I believe we will. Before asking our city and state officials to the stage, I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge the Office of Nightlife staff, Team Nightlife. It's just 4 of us. Deputy Director Jose Sogard, Nightlife Community and Industry Relations Associate Director Ray Martin, and Strategic Planning Associate Francesca Mira. I'd also like to acknowledge the Nightlife Advisory Board, which was established by legislation as a 14-member independent body appointed for a 2-year term to make their own recommendations to the City Council and to the Mayor. Its members include business owners, community board representatives, advocates for the arts, LGBTQ rights, social justice, DJs, musicians and performers, attorneys, and a sexual violence prevention specialist, bringing a variety of perspectives to the board. Several of them are here tonight to listen as well. Now, without further ado, it is my honor to welcome our city and state agencies to the stage. I am grateful that they have all agreed to sit up here with me tonight to hear all of you as we continue to work together moving forward. Please help me welcome them to the stage now. While they are making their way up to the stage and getting seated, just a reminder that if you wish to speak tonight, please turn in your comment cards now. There should be people collecting them. My colleague Jose Sogard will be sitting on stage and will be calling you by name in groups of 5. There will be microphone holders in between at the aisles where you can line up wherever it's most convenient for you. We ask out of consideration for time and for each other that you keep your comments brief and respectful so that we can hear as many people as possible. It is my understanding we may have up to 50 speakers tonight. In the event that not everyone is able to speak this evening, you can submit your testimony to the email on the screen. And please know that although this is the conclusion of our 5-borough listening tour, it is just the beginning of many more conversations. Thank you. It's a good-looking group. So now we have, as you can see on here, really many city and state agencies with nightlife overlay. And before we begin, I'd like to also allow each representative to introduce themselves, their agency, and how it intersects with nightlife.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Inspector Thomas Connolly. I'm the Operations Commander for Patrol Borough Manhattan South.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chief Inspector Pierre Charles. I'm responsible for the New York City Public Assembly Unit within the Fire Department, and I'm here to answer any question you may have with us. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Donald Giampietro. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Business Regulatory Reform and Business Incentives at the Department of Small Business Services. We try to streamline the regulatory aspect of businesses in the city and incentivize them to stay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Rain from the New York City Department of Buildings. I'm a Deputy Borough Commissioner in Manhattan, and our agency regulates the safe, lawful use of buildings.
Hello, I'm Michael Jones, the Deputy CEO of the New York State Liquor Authority. I'm assigned to the Zone 1 office, which is New York City, Long Island, and Westchester. Basically, the Liquor Authority regulates the manufacture, sale, and consumption of alcohol in New York City.
Good evening. My name is Magda Desdunes. I work with the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene's Bureau of Food Safety and Community Sanitation. We inspect food service establishments to make sure that food safety regulations are being met.
Hello, I'm Charles Shamoon. I'm an attorney with DEP involved in the noise code. And as you know, DEP is involved with water, sewer, noise, and air emissions.
Hi, my name is Sarah Elmore, and I'm with the Department of City Planning Manhattan office, and we are the keepers of the zoning resolution, which is the guidelines for what is will allow certain uses, so use groups 6 and 12, which would permit restaurants and clubs.
Hi, my name is Derek Wang. I'm from the Department of Cultural Affairs, representing the Commissioners Unit. We are an agency that funds almost 1,000 nonprofit arts and cultural organizations, including many that provide nighttime programming.
How you doing? Good evening. My name is Felix Ortiz. I'm here on behalf of Oath. I am the I work with the Ombudsperson and Pro Se Clerk Office. I am the support manager, and we have a help center which we provide free legal information for pro se respondents who are representing themselves. The idea of that is so that they can have, so they can better represent themselves and better understand the oath process, and so that they can have all the options available to them before they have their hearing.
We did not rehearse that part. Thank you all so much for the introductions. What I've learned in my short time in New York City government is that these agencies are also actually people. So that has been comforting to know that we can all really work together. But now, more importantly, it is time to hear from you. So, Jose, let us begin.
Good evening. I will be calling you up to speak in groups of 5. Please stand up and queue in the aisle that is most convenient for you. Each person will have 2 minutes. And when it's your turn to speak, please state your name for the record and keep your comments respectful and on time. We'll be keeping time right here. The first group of 5 is Laura Sewell, Ian Orr, Deborah Gonzalez, Sean Wilson, and Jared Harris.
Are you ready to start?
Please start.
So I'm Laura Sewell. I'm the Executive Director of the East Village Community Coalition. So we're located in one of the most saturated areas in the city. And I'm hopeful that we can hear some conversation about what we can do to improve response times from SLA investigations. They've gone to take a very long time, even though I think the staff there is wonderful. And FOIL requests, all of this is just taking far more time than it used to. And to hear from the city agencies how we can improve on police training regarding stipulations, licensing issues, that when the police respond, they could help us track operators that maybe are not a good fit for a neighborhood and are causing problems for the residents. Thank you.
Thank you for your question and statement. Mike, do you care to address the amount of time things are taking these days, or we're doing our best to do better?
Yes to both of that. We're always trying to do our best. I have to admit, over the summer, we had a little transition in the FOIL unit with staffing, and one of the... Oh, I'm sorry. Well, over the summer, we had a little issue with some staffing issues. A couple people left, but we're working hard to comply with the requirements of FOIL, and we do our best to respond in a timely manner. Now, I'm here tonight. I'm out most of the time at many of these events, and I do get emails from people. If there's an issue, I tend to follow it up if there's anything we could do. Yes, but I'm not in charge. I'm not in charge of the budget, and you could say that again. Maybe someone out there is listening, but you're not going to hear from me. All right. Okay.
Thank you. Would you like to address, what was it exactly that police related?
I know that in
specific-
areas like Midtown South, there's a big presence on the street that we don't necessarily have, and whether we could look into training for the police to understand stipulations associated with licenses, and to better document if establishments are not following their stipulations and causing problems for the residents.
Good evening. Any incident that happens that the police respond to any bar or club, we do a report to the SLA. Depending on what type of complaint that is, we'll determine how we're going to investigate it. So if we have clubs that we've identified as a pragmatic, where we've had a number of incidents, could be fights, assaults, 311 calls, we do also put them in there. It could be possibly part of a march operation. We work very closely with our legal bureau and the SLA to make a determination what steps will be taken, whether it'll be a nuisance abatement or other enforcement to correct the condition over there. Also, like it everywhere else in the city of New York, we have quarterly nightlife meetings with our clubs and our bar owners to discuss, complying with all our regulations and rules. And in regard to that, we also, throughout the city is now part of the NCO, where each of these locations, especially, you're in the Lower East Side, right, down where there are a number of bars and clubs. We do now have the NCO offices that work directly with the clubs and the managers at these locations to...
That's a great program.
Okay.
And the Office of Nightlife will also be working closely with the NCOs as well, perhaps on more nightlife-specific understanding and training to expand that program into the night as well, although it is already at night, but we can obviously have more education and communication there. And also in the timeline, I think with the Office of Nightlife really working to streamline as much red tape and bureaucracy as possible and to coordinate all of the city agencies more efficiently in order to expedite everything for everyone is one of our goals. So thank you for your question.
How you doing? My name is Sean Wilson. I'm operator of a bar in the East Village, particularly the one that Ariel lives above.
Thank you. We have a good relationship, actually. I just would like to note that, even though sometimes it gets loud.
My question is really about the city agencies that are doing work in and around the establishment. For those past 6 months or so, we've had water work being done, and there really was no communication with us or any input from us to let us know what's going on, and it really negatively impacted our business in that we lost our water on multiple days a week for months at a time, and in construction in front, so that we couldn't, have the business in front. So, but there was no communication before, and we just want to know how we can have that dialogue.
Transportation is not, construction and so forth isn't here tonight, but small business services will be able to step in and talk about how their office is really a liaison to all the city agencies, especially when there's an emergency situation like this.
Basically, I can speak to, can you hear me? So the Department of Small Business Services basically has an umbrella over with the business neighborhoods within the city, specifically the East Village. We work through actually the business improvement districts and local development corporations as well. But what we're doing is we have, in our business service unit, we're growing out 2 teams, one compliance advisors and some are compliance managers, and we have an emergency response unit that deals and targets and triages specifically with specific issues and areas. And again, this is something that we notice is a growing need because there are construction, there's egress and access issues. There's also timing, when construction begins. Is it 6 o'clock? Is it 7? Is it 8? I'll speak to those issues later regarding understanding the requirements and the restrictions on construction, like regarding neighborhoods and businesses where they coexist. However, again, we also have access to the business portal, which I'll go into in more detail, where you can actually access our services at the Department of Business Services, and then call to have one of these emergency response compliance advisors actually triage your situation. And then we are looking for better coordination with the neighborhoods.
Thank you. The Office of Nightlife is also going to be working with all of the city agencies to ensure better communication, and especially when it comes to construction, that there is water main shutdowns. A lot of these contracts are done in advance, and then by the time the businesses are affected, they're already written in stone, so to speak. So in advance of that.
What we're trying to do is like structure like definite conduits back and forth, but we do have these now at the Department of Small Business Services and our Business Service Division.
And the other thing is that there are incredible services, like at Small Business Services and all the other agencies, that many business owners and residents don't know how to access. So ultimately, we will also be doing a one-stop shop at the our website for the Office of Nightlife, so you can access information and resources and guidelines for all the city agencies on one website, and we'll be able to direct you so it's not so hard to find the resources that already exist. Thank you. Next.
Hello, my name is Ian Orr, and my question stems from an experience, and basically I would like to know if there are going to be any utilities that are going to be provided for event organizers, especially DIY organizers, because thanks to collectives like the Creative Footprint that have provided a lot of credible data as to how much revenue they do provide for the city, I would imagine that they would be a little bit more concerned. Having run-ins with, you had mentioned March, which I'm glad you mentioned, because they do not have a lot of transparency to the way that they organize, to the way that they function at times. Some of these events can be attacked, and sometimes, most of the time, these are events that are cultural hubs and mostly observing creativity and promoting diversity. Pretty healthy for the environment. So I would just like to know if there is any way that you would provide more of just protection, because nightlife repression is definitely still a thing, and if people are coming into your event that you are running legally and telling you to close it because they said so, not because there are any laws being broken. Thankfully, the cabaret law was repealed, which is a great initiative, but it's not the last step. It should be the first of many. Agreed.
Yes, thank you for your statement and bringing this to our attention. The Office of Nightlife was partly established because of the need to support and help stabilize and legitimize the underground creative spaces, creatively known or affectionately known as the DIY spaces now. We understand that it is costly to become a legitimate and permitted venue, and so the Office of Nightlife is working with multiple city agencies on pathways to that legitimacy in order to ensure safety, egress, and all of the other permits that they would need in order to make sure that they can thrive safely and legitimately. The March Task Force is a reality and a need for enforcement for venues that are having chronic problems, but at times I think right now there's actually a bill that is being presented to bring more transparency with the March unit and to make sure that it is being utilized and deployed for the worst cases, and those venues, whether it be DIY or other venues that need support in order to be compliant, that we are able to make that differentiation. But simply put, the Office of Nightlife, the administration respects and acknowledges the need for the underground creative communities from which all culture really does seem to, spring forth from. And it is a goal of ours to protect it in many ways. And we want to hear from you more ways to do that.
Hello, my name is Deborah Gonzalez, and I live at 10 Stanton Street on the Lower East Side. The New York Times just did an article on my building about how the culture is changing on the Lower East Side. My building is one of the last buildings that was on the urban renewal. We have a new hotel. We have 4 bars across the street from my building. We have a hotel that has 7 bars within the building. The oversaturation of these bars bring a lot of problems to our community at night. And I know that we have talked about oversaturation. And I understand that balance is needed in these communities, but the balance comes on our part. And that's the part that gets me upset, because we have elderly, we have children, we have mothers, we have schools in our neighborhoods, and we need the support of our community, which is all of you up on this panel today. So what I would ask is, please understand that oversaturation is one of the things that is killing our neighborhood. 1 bar is enough. We understand, just one more thing, we understand that landlords need to rent out these vacant lots or whatever you call them. But at the same time, you're killing us. So I would ask the panel, how can the police department, how can you, Ariel, help us with this oversaturation and make it better for quality of life for all of us in this room today?
Thank you very much for this point. It is something that we are all aware of and is acknowledged, obviously, within the residential community and in the administration, how to balance the vitality of the industry as well as the need for peace of mind and quality of life of a community. This is a new office. We're sitting here listening to everyone's concerns, and it is a goal of this office to work together with city agencies that are able to address that have that within their wheelhouse to address it, and other solutions within the administration. But we are aware of the need for balance, and it is one of the goals of this office.
One more quick thing. They hired at the public hotel 25 people from my building, and then they laid off 20. I just want everybody to know that.
Hi, I'm Jared Harris. I'm an actor. I have benefited from the support that nightlife gives the arts. As an actor, one of my first jobs in the city is working in a restaurant. I met my wife at a comedy club. So I think that one hears a lot of focus put on the amount of money that is being generated, and that is important. But quality of life is a bigger thing, and the thing that makes New York so exciting is the diversity and the quality of life, and a lot of that is supplied by small businesses. So, and you can see that there's a disappearing nature to what's happening towards the small businesses and the things that make neighborhoods unique. So, what are you guys doing to protect those things that make neighborhoods worth living in?
Thank you so much for your statement, and I think that this is obviously a complicated and real issue that goes far beyond just the scope of nightlife. It's a citywide issue, it's a nationwide issue. The evolution of retail and how it is moving off of storefront and brick and mortar, online. Affordability is an issue. It's a multi-agency issue. It's a local administration issue. It's a state issue. It's a federal issue. We will do what we can to help with affordable housing. Affordable commercial rents is something that is on the table for discussion as well. And I think affordability is a very big part of keeping the diversity of the city, to allow for artists to be able to live here and create here and to be able to work in small businesses and have diverse businesses in our neighborhoods. It is a complicated issue, but I think that it is on the radar of everyone that has the opportunity to be able to contribute. I think small business services also could contribute to this.
Just to speak, actually, I had a history in the past dealing with some business incentives during the transition of what is the Gainesville meat market, when it truly was a meat market and when it transitioned, and still transition actually. And so what we've done is we're creating tools because technology has evolved to allow, not to put everything online because there is the personal touch, and we do have those efforts where I spoke about personal compliance advisors, personal triage. But in addition, what we've done, because there's multiple programs that exist that are being created and are being actually revised, scattered across numerous websites. It's rather confusing even for me. And so what we did was we inventoried all the programs that are existing, and those that actually impact retail, those that impact, because people don't realize, certain industries within the nightlife can be retail, there could be back office operations, that each of these may actually trigger different programs both at the state level and the city. I'm not going to bore you about tax incentives right now, but just to note that there are programs. So we inventoried them, we aggregated them, and that we put them on one platform. We have a business portal, as I mentioned. I'm not going to underscore it too much, but it allows you to go in one place to see not only the permitting, but what programs that even pre-existed that can help businesses relocate and grow within the city, be they tax abatements, working with your landlord, tax rebates if you're not working with your landlord for yourself, if you're in the midst of a lease, what benefits can be used to lower rent, and sometimes if a neighborhood is transitioning, if people remember Old Dumbo, which was the Fulton Landing, Williamsburg before the last rezoning in 2005, Gainesville Meat Market, Soho, and Tribeca. These areas actually, some of these businesses benefited from moving within the city and reaping some of these relocation benefits. We also lower utility and operation costs. So again, the business portal allows, even for the city itself, to have all these programs that exist in one place, because education and knowledge also of the tools of the city is something that we need as well. Because sometimes the tools exist and we're trying to get the word out to the businesses that we can help make these programs available to you. And then see where the gaps are, where the vacuums are, and perhaps create new programs to match the current need.
Thank you for that answer. It's a complicated issue, and I think we all recognize that there's an evolution of sorts, transitioning, like you said, from what was to what will be. It will take creative thinking, maybe some millennial thinking, creative outside of the box initiatives, legislation, programs, but it has to be something that we all continue to talk about and make it something that is important to the residents and the businesses of the city. It's the people that push the initiatives, and we have to make sure that it stays at the top of the list to preserve our city and the diversity of it. Thank you for the question, Jared.
I'd like to call the next group of 5. Please come to any aisle most convenient to you. Pete Davies, James Claffey Jr., Aimy Northup, Nora Breen, Steve Lewis. While they're coming to the front, if you have a card, please raise it up and somebody will come and collect it from you.
You gonna hold it? Okay. My name is Pete Davies. I'm from Broadway Residents Coalition in Soho, also a member of the Neighborhoods United, which is a coalition of community groups from all around Manhattan. And first, I think what we're hearing, the equation of culture and creativity and the use of alcohol is something you really need to examine. Coming from a family that was torn apart by addiction, and I think DOHMH should address this, the equation of the use of alcohol and culture and codifying that is very dangerous in many ways, and I think you need to examine that. My question is separate from that. My question is about stipulations and the SLA, and one would hope that in this day and age of information that we could post publicly the stipulations that have been worked hard on by the community boards and the community and the operators and come to an agreement. They're written down, they're submitted to the SLA, but then they kind of get lost, they disappear into wherever, and you have to foil them, and you have to wait, and you have to ask. Why can't those just be posted, maybe on the portal that you're discussing, so everybody can see them? NYPD knows what they are, the SLA inspectors know what they are, the residents know what they are, and the operators know what they are. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that recommendation. Mike, do you care to address that at all? Not so much.
We are working on making stipulations public. There's a transition. We're revising our website. There was also the application process is going through a statewide website. And I agree with you that stipulations should be more accessible, because it's true that many of the police departments don't know what stipulations apply. But I will tell you that stipulations do apply to the license if they're adopted by the full board or by the SLA. And most stipulations are agreed to and are adopted, and they are part of the license, and most of the major ones are on the license itself. The ones about the closing, no DJ, rooftop, backyard. And we work very hard to enforce the stipulations, especially when the full board is the one who decides. We take it a little personally when there's an agreement, we're asking you to close at 2, we're asking you not to use DJs. And the full board will suspend or cancel licenses if there are repeated violations. But we understand, and I agree with you. Matter of fact, some community boards require a stipulation is to post the stipulations. So that's something that you can negotiate. I think it made sense. They're posting licenses, so maybe they could post the stipulations. Thank you for the question.
Something that we will explore, for sure. Thank you. Next. Nope, none of that. No, nope, sorry. You had your moment. You can come back if you'd like.
Ariel.
Yes.
You wanted the health, man. That's right.
Okay. I could say
Sure, we will address it.
We'll address it. Thank you. So the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, our mission is to protect the health of all New Yorkers. Sorry. The New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene's mission is to protect the health of all New Yorkers. We understand and we know that alcohol use is the 3rd leading behavioral cause of death in the United States. And we do have programs that are there to support you and to try to get help. We have a substance abuse treatment facility locator online. You can actually call a number and get information and referral 24 hours, 7 days a week. And if you want to get more information, I'll be out there for you and I can provide you with information.
I understand what you were trying to say, and that alcohol doesn't necessarily need to be the glue that binds culture. It is an option and a choice that some people can make for themselves, and others can opt out. And it's good to know that we have that option. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jim Claffey. I am the president of Local 1 and international vice president of the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. I want to offer my thanks to those on the panel and for everybody here. I want to suggest that I offer sincere respect on behalf of the 10,000 or more folks that represent and serve the 40 Broadway theaters in the community, Radio City Music Hall, the Metropolitan Opera House, Madison Square Garden, to name a few, through Manhattan, Staten Island, and the Bronx. And I would just suggest, with offering that respect for all your concerns, I'd ask you to also acknowledge the fact that we welcome the Office of Nightlife, because there is an additional nightlife beyond what the subject has been discussed. With the 10,000 or more folks of stagehands, people in wardrobe, folks that represent hair and makeup, ticket takers, treasurers, and so on and so forth. We've had the voice through Commissioner Julie Menin and the resources there, but for our purposes and the folks for our purposes of safety and quality of life, any additional voice and avenue to further influence those objectives and concerns, we welcome that, and we appreciate that. I truly want to suggest that we're listening to everything that was just said here, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of people, a lot of discussions, a lot of concerns, and to try to listen to everything is important. The one question that I would have on behalf of those I represent is a concern, and it's a difficult topic. And the topic is what we've seen, the tragedies around the country, and New York City is a target, and if not just Times Square, maybe the Met Opera, Lincoln Center, Rockefeller Center. And to the commander, I offer my respects. We've had some discussions with regard to safety and precautionary measures, not only in the theaters, but outside the theaters. Is the office...
Continue.
My appreciation, thank you. Is the Office of Nightlife an additional avenue that we can talk about precautionary measures for active shooter training? You've seen, again, the unfortunate situations with potential bombs in the areas. We have a great effect with the magic of theater, but at the end of the day, there's a tragedy of large audiences. We represent the folks, the fine stage crew, that in this theater itself, I want to acknowledge them, please. They do a great job, the light, scenery, and sound, everything you see about them. But will the Office of Nightlife have any influence with listening to us and our concerns, and maybe educate us on what the precautionary measures are for the theaters, which we ask you to kindly acknowledge are also a big part of nightlife? I heard you about the tourism, and we're extremely proud of that. So I appreciate everybody's help.
Thank you so much for stepping forward. Absolutely, and also to your point, sir, nightlife is not just about alcohol and parties. It's about life at night and all of the culture and activities that surround it. And that goes for bars, clubs, restaurants, theaters, and all the ways that New Yorkers enjoy the city once the sun goes down. It also is about coordinating all of the city and state agencies through transportation, sanitation, NYPD. I appreciate you bringing up the subject in regards to the very real threat that we are under being in New York City, and venues are a soft target that are attractive, and it is would not be realistic to ignore that fact. I've already been in very large and impressive meetings with Homeland Security, NYPD, counterterrorism. Conversations are happening, strategies, plans, and those will be communicated, organized, and shared with the industry and the community as well. Perhaps you might want to add some more.
Yes. The active shooting, as we all seen over the last few years, could happen anywhere at any time. New York City Police Department is continuously training officers on patrol. Our emergency service unit, our strategic response group, how to respond to these locations. Also, at our quarterly nightlife meetings, we do have a crime prevention PowerPoint that we show to the bar owners and the managers at these meetings what they can do if there is an active shooting at your location. So we will be having another quarterly meeting on December 11th in Manhattan South, and we will be showing that again. But the training is continuous, and it's with everybody in the police department to respond to these active shootings.
Thank you so much.
Hi, thanks for having this. I'm so psyched that there are so many people here. My name is Nora Breen. I've lived in New York for 32 years. I'm an artist who has, really struggles to stay in the city for the expense of the rents. Sorry, could you pull that down a little? Thank you so much. So here are my points. A lot of the representatives who have spoken here tonight about what an important conversation this is have left. I find that interesting. I think that why so many of us are focused on liquor licenses is because we're all spent. We're also exhausted with what our neighborhoods have become. So it's become a focus, unfortunately. And, we've all lived here a long time and have seen the changes. And when people tell us, I came here for the nightlife, that's incorrect. I came here for the creativity and the diversity, which is being extinguished in front of my very eyes. That's my feeling. The saturation, I live on the Lower East Side, buzzword, we all know what that means. I don't leave my house on a Friday or Saturday night. I don't go out, I don't like to go to my corner store on a Friday or Saturday night. That's a problem. There are men peeing on my street, and it's insane. It's really, really bad. The bid, I'm very afraid of the bid, and so when I hear, you guys will know what the bid is, so when I hear people say, we want to help businesses, these representatives, cut through the red tape, I'm afraid that that's the community level. I don't like to hear that. And the last, the 500-foot rule, I don't understand what it is and why it's not enforced. That seems to be a very significant thing. And the last thing I'll say, I know I've said many different kinds of things, that these saturations are not happening in high-income neighborhoods. I don't see this happening on Park Avenue. I don't see this happening in Gramercy. It's the neighborhoods that had a working-class income where people could come in. The last thing I'll say is I'm at a lot of community board meetings. These seem to be restaurant groups. These aren't my neighbors trying to open a bar and survive. I would go there. These are restaurant groups with a very specific type of culture, which I think is taking over New York City. And I find it really sad. My heart breaks over this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I feel you. I hear you. I also grew up in the city. We all love what it was. I know I love what it is and what it can be. There are a lot of challenges. You've mentioned a lot of things, and it's happening for a lot of reasons. The Office of Nightlife has very high goals of working together with the community and with city agencies to find that balance, to help the pendulum swing more to the middle. It has swung into a certain direction. I think that there are groups, hospitality groups, that are contributing as well. There are small business owners that are still opening. But there are impacts and effects from the vitality of the nightlife, and we are going to work together, all of us, to find a balance. That's why we're here. That's why the office was created.
Could you address the 500-foot rule?
Mike?
It appears that I assume many of you know what the 500-foot rule is, but for those who don't, if there's a licensed establishment, if there are 3 or more and you're the 4th, full liquor license, now it only applies to full liquor licenses, applying, then a 500-foot hearing is required. Generally, the SLA is a licensing agency, like DMV. We are directed to issue licenses, so if anyone wants a liquor license, we're supposed to issue a license. With the 500-foot rule, the burden then shifts. It is up to the applicant to show that this bar is in the public interest. And part of the statute is that the community board makes recommendations and the SLA is to follow the community board recommendations. It is only a recommendation, but when the community board sends resolutions and if they have stipulations, we typically adopt those stipulations. So the best way to get involved in issuing licenses in these saturated areas, and there are other areas that are saturated. I mean, you could talk to the people up in Inwood and discuss the issues there. And Gramercy, 3rd Avenue, I walk my daughter to school up 3rd Avenue, and everything between 23rd and 28th is a bar. So it's throughout the city. We have the 500-foot hearing where people can show up. If you can't show up, we take written testimony. That's acceptable. And anytime there's opposition to a license, it is sent to the SLA full board, which is the chairman and the 2 commissioners. And then again, there's an opportunity for people to discuss why it is in the public interest and also why there's no need for the 47th sports bar in this area, which I live down there as well. I try to go down to, my cousin lives down by Brooklyn Bridge, and I can't get down the FDR on a Saturday night. It's very busy. The idea is that everyone has to agree to stipulations, and then everyone has to comply. So that really is the problem, making sure that people are complying with the stipulations, because the community board works very hard to come up with these agreements. They think it's fair, so you don't have to stay open till 4. You should close at 2. You don't have to. You're a restaurant. You need a kitchen. You shouldn't have DJs and promoters. And we all think with these stipulations it could work out. But that's why, as I said earlier, we try very hard to enforce the stipulations when they're violations.
So that's it in a nutshell. But I think it's safe to say we'll be looking at everything with a fresh pair of new eyes through the Office of Nightlife, and we'll take your comments and everyone's comments into consideration. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Steve Lewis, and for 35 years I owned and operated clubs, DJ'd badly at clubs, wrote about clubs, designed restaurants and clubs, and now I am rewarded in my semi-retirement by living across the street from a really loud bar. As Ariel and other speakers have pointed out, we are the city that never sleeps, but many of us have to sleep. I listened to the woman who eloquently pointed out the oversaturation of her neighborhood. She's right. The LES is tough to walk through at night, let alone sleep through. But she says one bar is enough, and the crowds at the bars obviously disagree with her. A possible solution to this lies in paid detail. A police department program that sort of is a rent-a-cop program. A security guard can do only so much, but obviously they fall short. A cop paid for by the nightlife establishment itself can quiet a honking cab, stop someone from peeing in a doorway, stop littering, stop yelling. A cop standing outside or in a car outside a club paid for by that club will make that block safer. Paid detail will answer many of the problems communities have with these joints. In the past, this has been shot down because of a perceived reign of litigation. Exposure to litigation is surely something that can be dealt with by those in this panel. Lastly, venues and clubs, as pointed out a few minutes ago, are soft targets for evildoers. 49 people dead, 53 wounded in Orlando, and of course, a few weeks ago help me, Thousand Oaks, 12 people were killed, including a sheriff's deputy. This is not the answer to all problems, but certainly having a trained officer outside establishments can make her neighborhood quieter because they can lock people up and can make the flow of culture and nightlife, and the people that sleep in these places a better fit. Okay, thanks.
Thank you for your experience and expertise, Steve. We have another over here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aimy Northup. I'm an actor and a director, so longtime bartender. I also work for Outsmart NYC, and I'm here to talk about what we do. Outsmart, quite simply, does sexual violence prevention work in nightlife spaces. We are a quickly growing partnership between nightlife and hospitality professionals and programs serving survivors of violence across New York City. That means that I and several of my nightlife colleagues work directly with trauma therapists and preventionists in order to coordinate the best strategies for eliminating harm in our industries and our communities, while honoring the needs and the realities of the nightlife world. We are the only program in the city, I think, that is marrying these two kinds of expertise. While people may know of Outsmart related to our bystander intervention training for venues, a huge component of our work is about supporting the growth of productive, positive, and healthy relationships between venues and their communities. At Outsmart, we believe a few core things. One, that everyone has the right to go out, to have a good time, and to be safe doing so. Two, we believe that New York City nightlife is a vibrant and beautiful thing, not without complications, and I'm grateful for everyone speaking tonight. I think, frankly, it gives New York its lifeblood and the foundation for community. We sometimes see this othering of nightlife, a mindset that it is inherently problematic, a nuisance, or a source of harm, but I want to challenge that because I don't think that you can separate nightlife from the communities and neighborhoods that is what we are a part of. Economics aside, we are the places that people come to meet, to be together, to eat, to dance, to drink, to go on dates, and to laugh and play and talk and flirt. We are the places that people come to be people and to be in community. And that is beautiful, and it can be messy, and yes, sometimes dangerous. It is not by nature an inherently violent industry. Truly, y'all, these are awesome spaces, these spaces that we build to be together. 3, we believe that because of this, nightlife professionals are uniquely poised to make huge, if not some of the biggest impact in culture shifts that we are so desperately craving in these Me Too moments. We are on the ground. We have so much opportunity to set the tone of culture in our spaces, to decide what behavior we are no longer willing to overlook or normalize in the name of hospitality, or the customer is always right. We can intervene. We can make these spaces that we are all a part of safer. Which brings me to 4. I said yes, all. We believe that everyone is life. If you go to bars, if you go out to eat, if you walk by these places on your way home from a long day, you are a bystander and you are a part of our community. And we as communities have to start taking better care of each other. We have to start holding each other accountable. We have to start making each other's safety our business. We cannot do the work to end sexual violence without the commitment from everyone in our neighborhoods and the support of our city and the Office of Nightlife. We also recognize that not every neighborhood is the same and not every community's experience is a monolith. Different communities have different needs, realities, different relationships with the police and the criminal justice system. We cannot engage in a one-size-fits-all prevention strategy. It is our hope that the Office of Nightlife also recognizes that. We believe in the power of community accountability, and of our communities to be responsible for their own culture shifts.
You're at your time. We appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The Office of Nightlife recognizes the Outsmart organization. They do incredible work. Safety in nightlife is essential, and we will be working closely with them and other groups like them to make sure we use nightlife as an interface for improvement on how we treat each other. So, thank you again.
The next group of 5 will be Cormac Flint, Allegra Riggio, Alba Ponce de Leon, Cristian Liendo, and Erica Rubin. If you're at the front, please begin.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Allegra. I'm a lighting designer. I've built many nightclubs in Miami, New York, LA, Las Vegas, blah, blah. I'm very grateful that the Department of Nightlife exists, and I have 2 questions that I hope you guys can help me with, and thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. This might be a DOB question. So I've worked at Webster Hall. It's now gone. Of course, Twilo Tunnel, Limelight, millions of places that I think should have had some sort of safety of landmark status, especially a place like Webster Hall, which had been around forever. And I'm hoping that, that's right. I'm very proud. I did Lights for Nina Hagen there. I tell everybody. So I really hope that people are taking into account that some of these nightlife venues are legendary, and I'm hoping that something happens where we can landmark anything that's left, because there's really a dwindling number of places that are like that. That's one, that's DOB. Number two, I have a friend here named Grasshopper. Grasshopper is a performer. He's a contortionist, and he's very, very awesome. Sometimes small performers that work in little clubs don't get paid. And I think that the onus should be on someone to contact the promoters or whoever's supposed to pay them and make it a problem for them. It's difficult enough using your body as your work, but it's even twice as difficult when you do the work and then you don't get paid for it. So I'm hoping that something can happen where, I don't know the words to say it, but a way to protect the small performer in nightlife. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Allegra. Thank you. When it comes to landmarking of spaces, our city has a Landmarks Preservation Commission. I would urge you to contact them.
Well, as an Office of Nightlife representative for the nightlife and the wishes of those who love it, you bringing this up here tonight allows us to put this on our list of what our priorities for nightlife and for the community, and to make sure that the beloved places that we have the opportunity to stay if people want them to. And so I do echo what he says. You should reach out, but you have tonight, and we will echo what you're saying as well. So thank you so much. And Grasshopper, thank you to you. Yes, there is also, the administration has also come up with some legislation. Freelance isn't free. And I believe that there's also a Freelancers Hub that was just opened in Dumbo for all employees that are freelancers, including those in nightlife. I encourage everybody here who is an independent creative worker to check out the Freelancers Hub. They give free legal advice, contracts, all types of guidance on how to protect your rights that already exist in the city. Whether you know that there's a resource or not tends to be the obstacle, not necessarily whether it's there or not. So I would encourage you to go there, and if not, reach out to us and we will point you in the right direction. Thank you.
To the side, please.
Hi, I'm Erica Rubin. For 10 years, I was the executive producer of Central Park Summer Stage, and for 15 years, I've been running a nightclub party. And I want to talk about culture, big, long-term, lofty ideas, just for the record. While club culture and arts are typically dependent on the sale of alcohol for their support, I'm wondering if the city can step up to provide alternatives for this culture's survival. If the city supports major cultural institution groups, such as the Metropolitan Museum and the Public Theater, which are world-class visual and performing arts venues, could the city also step up to dedicate a city property to develop a home for an equally significant art form, namely contemporary live music and dance forms that are best presented in their natural club habitats? Clearly, these are big conversations that are worthy of DCA's inclusion. And to that, I'm also wondering if the city can work with the state to find a way to make the formation of nonprofit businesses and some new quasi-nonprofit category more feasible for clubs and community spaces, since frankly, that's how most of them ultimately operate. Amsterdam and Berlin's nightlife mayors heavily credit their successes to their offices' public-private partnerships. And just as Central Park Summer Stage thrived under the auspices of City Parks Foundation that works in partnership with the Parks Department, I think there's a great opportunity for the Office of Nightlife to also have a nonprofit partner, or perhaps even an official P3 that might be able to help create some of these cultural programs and awareness campaigns for nightlife and to further develop new audiences for our nightlife industry. That office could actually be self-funded if the city provided, let's say, for example, big idea, a major park venue for an NYC Festival of Nightlife that could become a major tourist magnet, cultivate new audiences for promoters, and give artists and clubs a chance to showcase the best of their artistry and not the watered-down versions that we're seeing at some of the EDM festivals.
Thank you, Erica. You're at your time.
We definitely got it, and I love all those ideas very much, and definitely worth exploring and discussing through the Office of Nightlife and Department of Cultural Affairs. I'm sure you agree. I don't know if you want to chime in.
Yeah, we support.
Bring it closer, your mic.
So we support, and we are proud of supporting, the big institutions that are on city-owned land, such as the Met and Natural History Museum. But we also, for those of you who don't know, there are 33 institutions on city-owned land, and there are small ones that are really neighborhood anchors, like Flushing Town Hall and Brooklyn Children's Museum, that that also provide lots of valuable programming and services to local communities. And actually, with our new cultural plan that was released in 2007, we've been making progress in funding more smaller cultural organizations and organizations serving low-income communities in New York City. So we are doing our best and strategizing how can we make our funding more equitable and more inclusive for everyone. But I definitely hear your idea about a space for nightlife that's more long-term and sustainable.
Thank you so much. And we will also be working closely together. Thank you, Erica.
Hi, my name is Cristian Liendo. I was born in the Lower East Side, couldn't afford it, so I moved to Midtown. I'm a resident here. There are about 144 apartments in my building. We have at least 13 people on staff, many of them union. So as a person who lives here, who pays taxes, and so on, we do contribute to the coffers of the city. So I understand that nightlife makes the city a lot of money. We do too. With that, I live right across the street from Kinky Boots. They're not my problem. The Broadway shows, not my problem. Most of my problems are the nightclubs that are there till 2 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the morning, their people and their music. One of the problems that I have with the DEP, and hopefully they can address this, is that they concern themselves with, high decibel noise, but they don't concern themselves with bass music, stuff that vibrates through your walls. I spent $6,000 on soundproof windows that can't stop that noise. And so I want to know what you're going to do about that, because right now, given everything I've seen, you seem to be more concerned about the venues and less about us. And you shake your head no, but I hate to tell you, that's the impression you're given. Maybe that you don't feel that way, but you're not on this side of the stage.
Thank you for your comment. Would DEP like to address bass levels?
We do have bass music levels in the noise code, and if you talk to Ray Wright and give your specific numbers and contact information, we can have someone address your particular issue.
Yes, you can also give your number to our community industry liaison, Ray Martin, and we can also try to resolve that issue for you. And I assure you that I care for the entire community and industry, and that is why we're here. So thank you again for your comment. Next.
Hello, my name's Cormac Flint. I live in the Village, and I've been involved in these issues for about 15 years when my block started changing from shoe stores to bars. And we've actually been a success story. We built a collaborative thing. We didn't take a dig in our heels approach, and we've been a success story. It has been a ton of work. A lot of effort that could have gone into, like in my mother's generation, that went into the schools, that went into beautifying the neighborhood, that went into other activities, and my neighborhood had to go into just being able to sleep at night. So it's like a ton of work, shadow work. But it is a success story. That being said, I've been really disappointed, disheartened by a lot of what I've heard here tonight, because what I hear you doing is framing the issue in a very strange way, which is, this really appears to me to be, Michael said before, and he's right, SLA is a licensing agency. The idea is you're supposed to issue the license. This whole thing seems to be set up to me on the principle that we're going to have nightlife and a lot more of it as much as we can, and we're going to figure out a way. And one of the lessons that I learned from all those years of brokering deals and trying to be in the middle of it is, not every situation is a win-win. Yes, in the city of New York, we can have vibrant nightlife and decent people sleeping at night, but not at every location, not every time, right? And you're also thinking about this, you talk all the time about the economic impact of nightlife, all the positive side, but you're not looking at the negative side of the balance as well, right? And I don't mean to say that it's all negative. Everything is a double-edged sword. Looking at my block, I became the head of my block and started doing this stuff. You know how that happened? I didn't want to. I didn't even want to be involved, right? But what happened is that the other people who were doing it before me got so fed up with the noise, they left the city, okay? And so I know that nightlife brings all these great things to the city, but you know what? People who can't sleep at night, and there's a lot of science and things to back this up, that's lost productivity. That's lost economic impact for the city later, right? People who have just been here for 20 years, they invested their whole youth, they've just hit their 50s, their prime civic involvement time, and they leave the city, right? That's loss of diversity. Young couples who leave the city because their kid can't sleep at night because of all the noise outside, and so they move out to suburbs, not because they want to, but because they have to, because it's so noisy. That's loss of vibrancy too. And those are all impacts of nightlife that happens. So it's not all rainbows and unicorn and light.
Well, I thank you for your feedback and your experience, and I think that the Office of Nightlife would benefit from your success story. I am an optimistic person, and I do believe that things can be improved, and I like unicorns and rainbows. I'm also realistic, and I'm happy to have realistic conversations, which is what I believe we're doing here this evening, and to have a balanced conversation so that we can inform the office to do better, so that we can learn from what you've accomplished. So if you're willing, I would like to be able to benefit from what you've learned in your success story so that we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. So if Ray Martin could please get his contact information, we'll be reaching out to you. And thank you for being here tonight.
Hi, my name is Alba Ponce de Leon. I'm a musician and an actor, and also in a past life, I was also a manager for a small business in Williamsburg on North 6th, which was an independent business and has since closed because of rents rising. Now it's all big box places down there. Anyway, I'm representing the Sound Mind Collective, which is a group of musicians that's trying to improve the lives of musicians and artists in New York. And we have a number of concerns, many of which coincide with people here, including low wages and no wages, lack of affordable housing and healthcare, and also the dwindling mid to small venues. So not just these like big places that are only bringing in national acts, but like local artist communities. And we'd like to see the Office of Nightlife partner with organizations like ours to actually work directly with musicians and artists on solutions, because we feel like it's crucial to stay connected to artists on the ground level in order to understand our struggles and our concerns, and also to connect with us in order to understand what existing information and resources already are out there, because there seems to be a disconnect in that way as well. So anyway, we've had a lot of representatives at as many of these meetings as we've been able to attend, and we're like very committed to being a liaison with our community and with you. So we hope that we could develop a relationship with you guys and bring our voice to the table and try to workshop solutions for us, because as families, as individuals, it's important to our survival to have, pay and homes and healthcare, and also because it's important to the culture of this city to have a vibrant artist community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are committed to working with you as well. Please make sure that we do connect.
I'll call the next group of 5 speakers. Hope Beach, Robin Sokolov, Marna Lawrence, Michelle Campo, and Carol Poutre. If you're at the front, please begin.
Oh, hi. I think I'm going to echo some of the things that people have already said tonight. I'm a resident of the Lower East Side, specifically at Lower Orchard Street, where we're staring down the face of a new hotel that's about to open 7 new bars across the street from me with live music and DJs. So I guess the questions I feel like haven't quite been answered are, from a quality of life perspective, well, I partner already very closely with the NCOs in Sector B of the 7th Precinct, and they've supported a lot. I have to do a lot of work to contact the bar owners, to contact the officers to get the noise, and then it's like the cigarette smoke outside my door constantly. So I want to know, like, what are we doing so that I don't have to, like, text the police in the middle of the night to get the noise to go down? And then my second question is, and this is for the SLA gentleman, if the LAS is getting so many noise complaints from all these liquor licenses, why do we continue to open more liquor licenses before we deal with the bad operators that we already have destroying our lives?
Well, I will just touch upon the conflict you're having with the establishment next door. One of the programs that we hope to be implementing, that we are already implementing and that are here tonight, is the New York City Peace Institute. We are aligned with free mediation organizations, the same organization that trained the NCO officers for the NYPD. We feel that mediation services is a void in this sort of lexicon of relationship between community and industry. And so I would actually either encourage you to speak with the New York City Peace Institute that is here tonight, or to reach out to us so that we can help you have a sit down with that organization during day hours and to come up with an understanding of where the boundaries are and when they're crossed and how to handle it at that time, and not necessarily always to rely on 311 or 911 or CB3 or SLA, and to have personal relationships and to humanize what these irritations are, because I think that ultimately is the best way to handle it. Right, but calling the bar, and then you've got one person and not the other person, and who's in charge. So having a free mediation service to arrange a sit-down and to come up with an agreement is a new approach that we are instilling at the Office of Nightlife to help mediate and create peace. And then the SLA issue was in regards to licensing. You know, with this economic impact study that the Office of Nightlife is, the Office of Media and Entertainment is releasing, we know that most definitely it feels like it's always a new bar. From my understanding of the results, the actual growth of nightlife and new licenses, as reported by the SLA, is 2% annual growth. What tends to happen is that new licenses are in previously licensed locations, not so easy to do in non-previously licensed locations. So it's more of a recycling in the same areas, and not necessarily new ones, but not necessarily a reduction either. So it's more status quo with 2% growth based on this study that we did, and we made special effort to look at that number to try and get a handle on what that is. We understand the feeling of oversaturation, and there is the 500-foot rule, 200-foot rule, community board, stipulations. These are all things that we will be taking a closer look at to try and pay more closer attention to those details. So please do speak with the mediation services or with our office, and we'll arrange it for you. Thank you.
My name is Carol Poutre-Chez. I've been a resident of the East Village for the past 30 years. I don't think we need an Office of Nightlife. We need a protection from nightlife office. Isn't New York City enough of a party city? Isn't a $48 billion industry enough? And when the commission team is made up of people, the majority of whom seem to be vested in promoting establishments with liquor licenses, who is going to speak for the residents who are overwhelmed and whose quality of life has been greatly diminished by the ever-growing proliferation of nightlife? It has been challenging enough for residents, community activists, and block associations to constantly fight battles at community board, SLA meetings, and city council meetings. I'm afraid we will now have a nightlife advisory board basically advocating against us while giving nightlife establishments a more powerful voice. However, I'm very heartened to hear that there will be an opportunity for residents to work with the nightlife board. So let's meet in another year and see how that's working out.
We can meet next week. Next.
I'm Marna Lawrence. I live within Community Board 2, across from Petrosino Square in the Little Italy, a special Little Italy district. My questions are addressed mostly to the mayor's office of nightlife. Number one, what specifically does the mayor's office intend to do to address the blatant lack of enforcement at the Department of Buildings and the lack of oversight when issuing permits? For example, I live, and this is a great problem for our neighborhood. I live above a new restaurant in which they just received a violation for $2,500 for filing a material false statement in their work permit. It's interesting also that this particular, well, there's a number of issues here. $2,500 is not very much money for lying on a work permit application. And I understand maybe this isn't true, but I think I heard from someone at the Department of Buildings themselves that they don't really ever have to pay that fine until it becomes really, really high. So you wonder about the incentive. Also, that particular section was supposed to be filled out by the property owner. So, but because they were a corporation, they could do it themselves, the principal of the restaurant. So my next question is, how does the mayor's office intend to make landlords of mixed-use buildings who are making enormous money off of commercial rent responsible to their tenants, assuring them of a sustained quality of life, preventing them from harassing tenants? Is it possible to get legislation to limit the rents? Probably not. Number 3, how does the mayor's office intend to motivate the New York State Liquor Authority to enforce its own rules and regulations and executive full board stipulations issued to principals who seek a liquor license, all of which are designed to provide quality of life protection to tax-paying residents of the city of New York who live in neighborhoods co-opted by the real estate-driven nightlife mafia, and I use the word mafia intentionally, a closed group of people in a particular field having a controlling influence. And number 4.
Thank you.
You're at your time, Minor.
Thank you. All good points that will be noted. I mean, you asked a lot of questions, so can you give me one? Okay, so I will allow the Department of Buildings to answer that question. Well, the Office of Nightlife is working to create a multi-agency working group that is not just assembled here as a display of interest for these meetings. This is actually the beginning of a multi-agency working group that will move forward along with the recommendations and concerns of the people that are showing up not only here, but in the many meetings we'll be having after the fact. And these multi-city agencies will be sitting together and coming up with a way to streamline, to address these issues, to work in partnership and in concert with each other to ensure that these issues are being addressed in an efficient manner. When it comes to the Department of Buildings and others, we feel that if we are working in concert with each other rather than against, we can address a lot of these issues in a more efficient and direct manner. I cannot help to enforce other agencies to enforce their own rules. I think that each agency is responsible for themselves. However, when it comes to the issues of nightlife, we are a voice and an advocate for not only the industry, but the residents in relation to nightlife, and to assure that that voice is at the table when problems are being solved. And that's what we will do. Thank you. You can answer.
Question directed to Ms. Palitz or to me?
To me.
No,
This is getting unruly.
This is for me, right?
There are 10 other agencies here, but as I mentioned earlier, the SLA will enforce any stipulations that are agreed to or are on the license. So if we get a complaint, we get about 3,000 or 3,500 complaints, and they're all reviewed, and we will investigate and enforce any stipulations that you're referring to. I don't know what else to say about that, other than Detective Petrosino was killed by the mafia in Italy, so it's interesting how you pointed that out.
Hi. As far as the buildings department goes, we hope to enforce everything without blatant lack thereof. So you mentioned that there was a violation issued, so that was our first means of enforcement. And we thank you for that.
Okay, Miss, thank you. I think your point is clear. It is noted, and I think, you know, some venues think that there's over-enforcement from city agencies, and there are people that think there's not enough enforcement. And so it really is a question of follow-up. we will follow up with this, and thank you for bringing it to our attention. Next.
Hi, my name is Del Campo. I'm a native New Yorker. I'm a resident of the Bowery. I'm also a member of the Bowery Block Association, the Bowery Alliance of Neighbors, and Neighborhoods United. Now, I live between two community boards. So I have, the luxury of going to 2 community board hearings on SLA items that come up, applications. And I've done MOUs with certain applicants, and we've worked out things very nicely. I've done stipulations, I've gone to way too many meetings, and I've also been up to the SLA headquarters. Now, what I want to know is, and I know you said, well, you've given us the words of the 500-foot rule, which I think people here already know, but there was nothing I heard after that. Now, if it is denied, the 4th applicant, why is not denied at the SLA when you say you pay attention to the stipulations and this and that and the other thing, and this is the 500-foot rule? So instead of just writing stipulations for the 4th applicant and the 5th and the 6th, why is it not just denied? Now, right now, I live on the Bowery and I've lived there most of my life. I liked the way it was before. There were people wouldn't come to visit me because they were afraid, but now it's an alcoholic theme park with trolling drunkards and people pissing all over, and if they ring my bell at night, they get wet. And if they piss in my doorway, they will become a soprano. It's really dreadful. And I don't see any enforcement. And if you have stipulations and you call the precinct or you call 311 when they get there, it'll be tomorrow. What's that? That is nothing. I don't want to you're aware of it, because I know you're aware of it. I want to. What are you going to do about it?
Well, we are here with this brand new office, newly formed. What we are doing about it is first listening to what you have to say. And then we are going to convene as a multi-agency working group, not only for the city, but also community groups such as yourselves. And we're going to find solutions, and we're going to do what we can to implement them. You're looking at it, we're living it right now. It's all happening.
To the enforcement happening, when will this be? In a year, 2 years, 5 months?
Listen, you say that friends didn't visit you because it was too dangerous.
They thought it was.
And now you like it better when it's less dangerous.
The old guys were fine.
We understand
They
that.
went home at night.
I would
These
like
guys
to,
don't.
I
They
let you
sleep at
speak,
night.
miss. It's my turn. You asked me a question. I'm answering it. So I just want to make sure that we're all respecting each other equally in here and listening to each other. We hear your frustration. I hear your frustration. We hear it. And the whole purpose of creating the Office of Nightlife and having these meetings is to assess these issues, prioritize them, find out what the best solutions are that we can implement, and to do that. And I ask for patience and trust and to work together in partnership. That's the way we're going to do it, together. Thank you for your question.
Do we have Robin Sokolov? You were called. Okay. The next group of 5 is Nicholas Bathurst, Stephen Mills, Cor Hazelar, Lauren Gardner, and Dale Goodson. Please begin at the front.
Whoever's at the front can begin.
Stephen Mills, and I am here I actually work at Mount Sinai, and I run a program called Menin's Sexual Health Project. And I guess to sort of give like a different side of the ways nightlife can benefit the community. I do a sexual health project that goes into sex venues, sex parties, sex clubs, mostly in the Chelsea area, and provide free HIV and STI testing, as well as linkage to PrEP and linkage to insurance, to all various health related issues that people might have, or to address questions and things like that. So I think partly to give a little bit of things we're not necessarily hearing, because it seems like this has been like one neighborhood complaining most of the time. And so I felt like this was a way to connect people in nightlife, was my hope for, I guess, what this could be. And also maybe a way for those of us who work in nonprofits that help groups or things like that, as a way maybe for us to connect better, and for us to be able to reach venues that maybe we don't know about, that might be interested in having programs like mine. And I think Amy, who was here from another outreach program, there's lots and lots of us in the city, and nightlife places and spaces like that are a great way to cause a lot of social change, as well as education for a lot of different opportunities. So mine was more of just a comment.
Thank you so much. Harm reduction within nightlife, whether it be sexual or drug use, being realistic, being aware, and being able to know the tools to implement harm reduction is essential, and we would very much like to be able to work with you and echo what you're doing. So thank you for your comment.
Good evening. I work in a nightlife venue because it fits with my lifestyle. I'm passionate about food and wine, and I've spent my adult life becoming an expert in the field. I consider myself part of the community where I work, and I'm very frustrated by the us versus them dynamic that seems to have developed on our local community board. Furthermore, I feel very welcomed by the actual members of the community, care deeply about the quality of life in my neighborhood, and believe that the community board resistance against my livelihood is not reflective of the actual position of the community they are supposed to represent. I attended a community board meeting to speak on behalf of the venue that employs me. I did so voluntarily because I believed my perspective was important. The chair of the committee said words to the effect that my testimony was not important or necessary because I only work in the community. Several of the supporters of the venue did live in the community, and they were shouted down as well. It was clear the objective of the committee was to only highlight negative testimony. Subsequently, I learned that the committee chair had told people in the neighborhood they should complain so the board can try to shut the venue down. Even more discerningly, he told residents and immediate neighbors that expressed support for the venue that they should stay out of it and not provide positive testimony. The obvious objective of this chair and his committee is to produce a resolution that is purely negative by encouraging negative testimony and suppressing the voices in the community that support the venue. They have predetermined the type of resolution they will produce because they believe it will work to convince the SLA to impede our business. They are a kangaroo court. I believe our venue takes quality of life very seriously and takes extraordinary steps to mitigate potential quality of life issues. We have never had a 311 complaint. All of my coworkers and I care deeply about people in the neighborhood, consider ourselves an amenity to the neighborhood, and want our residential neighbors to enjoy our venue as customers. That being said, I understand some folks fear the industry or are not willing to sacrifice any potential inconvenience or disturbance for the enjoyment and employment of others. Those negative voices should be heard and should be included in the resolutions to the SLA, just as I believe my voice should be heard. The problem is with community boards that game the system to make negative voices the only feedback the SLA sees the community boards. Community boards, regardless of their actual recommendation and regardless of how they vote, should have to produce resolutions that reflect all voices for and against. All community boards should be made up of all stakeholders in the community, not just select few who have political connections to the borough's president's office.
Thank you, Nick. You're at your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. What I would recommend also is just more people apply to community boards from within the industry as well to ensure the diversity that it needs. Next.
Hi. I've been thinking a lot, listening to everybody, about the order of how someone comes to occupy a space in New York and everyone's frustration with that order. I think New York City a long time ago, it used to be, I want to rent that storefront, and I talk to a landlord for 2 to 3 weeks. We come to an agreement, we sign a piece of paper, we throw down some money, and we get going. That's changed so much for so many people. And the more I talk to store shop owners, now it's a 3.5 to 4 month process with lawyers and architects and expediters and many different agencies. And if you are opening up a storefront and you go down that road, not until after that whole process do you then get to apply for a liquor license. And now everyone's in this crappy bucket together. And it's so complicated. I'm wondering about the order of things when you go to open a business, how that can be brainstormed or changed, because if it's after the money's been thrown down, after the lease has been signed, after everyone made these big plans to be somewhere in New York City, and how complicated that is to do, what if the process could be changed or reversed so that they're not first going through the deep dive of applying for a license and then finding out how disappointed and frustrated an entire community might be by that? I think when you first go to open a business, you don't know any of this is happening. What if you're new to New York? So I'm just saying it out loud, like, how can we change the steps of this process now that prices are so high, now that more people live here, now that the neighborhoods are changing, now that retail is over and other things are moving into what may have been not a bar or restaurant. I'm just thinking out loud about that process and how it can serve more people.
Thank you so much. I think creative thinking and a new approach is essential, and I think it's a really interesting idea. And
I could speak just briefly.
And we have SBS to speak.
So just quickly, I'm not going to speak about the macroeconomic trends of retail and the like. However, I have to say that as to underscore what I had referenced before, we actually are at the Department of Small Business Services. We actually have a regulatory reform unit, and what we've done is we've looked to inventory all the respective process steps. And what we are methodically doing is removing anachronistic steps that are between agencies that delay time, that actually relate and translate into additional money and perhaps tension and frustration with businesses, and to see these steps that actually had evolved over years, oftentimes for safety reasons, to manage the hybrid between the residential nature and the commercial nature, and we're streamlining these things. There's about 6,000 rules, but for the restaurant industry, what would be complemented by the nightlife industry, bars, food establishments, that was one of the first industries that we're targeting. And we have removed several hundred process steps and or legislation. Sometimes it does involve legislation, but also the nyc.gov /business is this portal, like a TurboTax, if you will, and you can go in, and we actually aggregated certain permits and licenses for the steps. Next step for us is to make it even more transparent. So if one is using an expediter or a professional, the particular business owner could see now where the particular permit or license application is within the process. And the best thing would be it allows us to remove inefficiencies. So we actually are moving forward. It's a task, but it's moving forward. And thank you very much for underscoring the need.
Thank you so much.
Is this on? My name is Cora Hazelar. I'm a member of the Chinatown Core Block Association and Neighborhoods United. We are all familiar with the system of letter grades the health department uses to help ensure the health and safety of our restaurants. It is interesting to contrast that system with the way liquor serving establishments are managed by the SLA. Whereas restaurants are subject to regular inspections and experience swift repercussions if they do not meet standards, it falls to residents, in my experience, to keep an eye on bars and clubs. Real-life examples can be found everywhere, including on my block, where a mom-and-pop deli has struggled to get their letter grade up and was at one point abruptly shut down. In contrast, a few years back, the bar next door blossomed into a full-blown dance club, in violation of multiple laws and their own stipulations. Despite hundreds of 311 calls, visits by the police, meetings at the local precinct and the community board, they remained in operation for 2 years. It fell to residents to report their many violations to the SLA, and even then, it was months before an inspector was sent out, and months after that before any action was taken. That action could be described as a slap on the wrist. This is not an isolated incident. It is an example of what is playing out all over town. I'm a working mom. I don't have time to play detective, submit FOIL requests, and attend meetings like this one. But I'm forced to because there is no accountability. Clearly, the SLA lacks the will and the manpower to take responsibility for the problems created by the establishments they license. It has been said that city agencies have no influence over the SLA, but here you are, sitting at the same table. So, how can the Office of Nightlife help us hold the SLA and the establishments they license accountable?
Thank you so much. Again, I would just repeat by saying how the Office of Nightlife will do that is to be the liaison office that is intending to be and to connect all of these city agencies to work together under an umbrella with nightlife and its implications in mind in a way that it has not been done before. There was an Office of Nightlife. It's a new approach, it's a new office, it's a new opportunity, and you can see by the agencies, both city and state sitting here tonight, there is also will to do so. So that is the approach and the goal moving forward. We are also, I would just like to mention, at 8 o'clock, which was intended our end time, we have been allowed to extend our time here to accommodate the other 25 speakers and cards. So we will not be taking any more cards. We will not be responding at such a length. I want you to know we are here, we are listening. We want you to be expeditious and to testify your experience, and we will be taking that to inform the office moving forward. So thank you for your statement.
Okay, hi, my name is Dale Goodson, live in the East Village. Writer, performance artist there for 25 years. And so I, enjoyed the benefits of that neighborhood and the diversity that was always there with the arts and the nightlife that existed at that time, but has the diversity is very much disappearing, becoming just more liquor license generated establishments. And so my first question is, stepping on some thin ice here tonight, is that the whole nightlife board, nightlife, Office of Nightlife, starts from the side of for-profit, not from quality of life. And that's kind of worrisome, I think, to a lot of residents in this area. And not to make any personal, can't say personal aspersions, but, the very fact that, Ariel, you are the head of this, the nightlife office, and former bar owner, worked for a consulting firm to help people get work through the system to get help expedite or work through to get their licenses, liquor licenses approved, and how to work with the system. It's not a real, for a lot of us, not a very good starting point. And then the advisory committee itself does not feel like it has, it's very lopsided in the terms of, business owners and people who have a vested interest in the monetary concerns of the industry, and very few people from just a block association or citizens of the city who live in areas where it's a problem, liquor licenses, noise, and the chaos that comes from it. And so I guess my one question was, or is, why wasn't this put together with more diversity to it? The advisory board, and even your position itself, someone who just has a more neutral feeling than someone who is born of the industry.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to address your concern. I think that there was nearly 1,000 applicants for this position, and I was chosen because of my diverse experience, background, and the fact that I am able to see all sides, though you may not be able to see that. Thank you. I can only say that through time, that I can and this office will be able to demonstrate its intentions. There's nothing I can say or do or that we can say right now, but moving forward, the intention of this office is not just to support nightlife, but what nightlife contributes. And nightlife contributes a lot to the city. Economy is one thing, culture, jobs, and quality of life, and the importance of quality of life to residents is a goal, a top goal, and an equal goal to this office. And because of the perception of who I am, who this office is, and the advisory board, the only thing that will clarify that is time. So I would appreciate that time to give us and to participate in the conversation constructively.
Hi, my name is Lauren Gardner. I'm with an organization in Manhattan called Baby Castles. I'm one of the many organizers there, and it's all volunteer run. We're also a nonprofit now. There's a few things I just wanted to say at first. Thank you so much for being here. It was, I think, 2 years ago at the DCLA that I attended a meeting with all the DIY organizers when it was first mentioned about your position coming up. And during that time period, in over 2 years, it's been really impressive to see the amount of conversations and to have this level of involvement, like directly with the city. So I think that's impressive. With that being said, I've written down a couple of your organization's acronyms, because I'd never heard of them before until tonight. There was maybe like 3 or 4 of you. So a little bit of background. Baby Castles is around for about 8 years in different spaces around the city. During that time period, we've been in 6 different locations. We started in the basement of Silent Barn. We were in 285 Kent and Silent Barn for another period of time. We have our own space. We've existed largely because we've learned a lot from other organizations, and I know that that was something that people had mentioned tonight, like how do we share this information? A lot of you had mentioned websites, which is great, and I'll definitely look those up. And Ariel, I know that it was mentioned at an earlier meeting about a liaison, and you had talked about a pipeline. I think those are very exciting. I'd love to hear more about those when you're ready to share that information. I guess I have 2 questions for you guys. Number one, how do you see either that liaison or the pipeline or the coalition that you guys are mentioning, how do you see us interfacing with that? What kind of access will we have? Will it be like a 24-hour phone number? How can we get information? What would the turnaround be? The second one is a specific question about zoning. It's been important for us, but other organizations in the city, we've had to move a lot because we would be located in areas that were like typically zoned for commercial use and then became residential, and then we would have to move. So how do we know where to go? Our organization, just for reference, is a cultural space. We're also a gallery. We focus explicitly on creating opportunities for independent artists who are typically underrepresented in the area of technology. So I think that this is really important.
You're at your time. Appreciate you.
I think, everything is in development as far as how the Office of Nightlife and city agencies can support the DIY community in order to find out what you need before we supply that liaison relationship. I'm not sure if any agency wants to talk about the zoning.
I can briefly chime in. So, when it comes to neighborhood-wide rezonings, that are led by the Department of City Planning, these are generally announced well in advance, and there's studies, and we elicit feedback from the community to understand what the needs are of the area. These are generally released far in advance before they begin the public review process, which is the official process of how to comment and receive community input. That being said, I have no additional information about specifically where locations are expected to have additional rezonings in the future. But, we do try to be transparent and receive as much input as we possibly can before moving forward with rezonings.
And I believe that there will be some hearings coming up in the winter in regards to zoning and nightlife, and I encourage you to check in to find out when they are, and it's really the voice of the community that should be representing and speaking. I just want to do a couple of notes here. I'd like to acknowledge Assemblymember Harvey Epstein, who I believe has joined us, and there he is. Thank you. Many of our electeds have been balancing the Christmas tree lighting and our important office work as well. And also Chief McCarthy here, who is here this evening, Manhattan South, and an old friend of mine, and so thank you so much for coming. So also, in light of how many cards we have left, we are going to sort of go into a lightning round where it's 1 minute versus 2. Hopefully we can honor that so we can hear as many people as possible. So if you can...
The next group of 5 will be Bill Bonbrest, Jan Lee, Alan Sugarman, Bill submitted 2 cards.
Bonbrest?
Excuse me. Chris St. Hilaire, and Pat Ivers.
I'm Alan Sugarman. I'm a resident of the West Side. My interest is in social dancing, tango, salsa, Lindy Hop. Now that the odious cabaret law is gone, thanks to Councilmember Espanola and some people in Brooklyn, everyone still realizes that most of the city, it is still illegal to have dancing venues. And I want to know what the Department of City Planning is doing. Do they have a specific staff, force, or people working on revising the zoning resolution to remove the puritanical prohibitions against dancing in most of the city? In my neighborhood, it's illegal to dance at 71st and Columbus, but legal at 72nd and Columbus. Thank you.
So these dancing establishments are based on use group allowances, which is permitted per certain zoning districts depending on the district. So it could be that there's a certain zoning district right across the street from a different zoning district that permits that certain use group. So, I mean, you know, when we do look at things for plans, we do take that into consideration and try to understand where there are useful, like where it makes sense to have these uses. And it's more of like a larger scheme. And we get a lot of this information from input from the community, from coming out to understand like when we're having the process to get feedback when there are rezonings. That being said, you know, like it's on a, like it's, we aren't looking at a whole citywide initiative at this moment that I'm aware of. You know, these types of things are embedded more in when we look at certain neighborhoods.
Can I have a follow-up? The sense of the city council was to get rid of these irrational regulations against dancing, social dancing. I'm not talking about nightclub raves with ecstasy and everything else. But an establishment should be regulated by the noise that it produces and the congestion, and not whether or not someone is holding their partner and moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Hi, my name is Jan Lee. I'm a third-generation resident of Chinatown. Some of the interesting things that we've come upon about the saving of, I heard a lot about saving small businesses and saving storefronts. One of the real things that we should be looking into is legacy leases, which means if a restaurant or a culturally significant business is in a space for a long time, we should be able to incentivize the landlord to give that person a renewed lease, providing they get substantial tax breaks for doing so, because after all, what drives many small property owners to rent to the $45 billion industry that is alcohol is that the city has this crushing burden of tax on them. So secondly, I do want to emphasize that we need, in addition to the Nightlife Advisory Committee, what Julie Menin had said, because we've had good talks with her, a community advisory committee to counterbalance this $45 billion special interest that is crushing small business, small communities. What happens without a community advisory? What happens without a community advisory committee is that cultures are, in my neighborhood, made into caricatures. We do not want the $45 billion liquor industry to make Chinatown a caricature. And I can point to paper lanterns and dragons and things called Shanghai Disco Night, which is why we need to have community advisory so that community...
We hear you.
Thank you, sir.
And I think the fact that Julie Menin spoke in regards to making sure that there was a platform and an avenue for community voices, although we do believe that the current advisory board does represent many voices, the overt concern in regards to the need for another avenue for community voice has been heard and has been established, and we will be using it. So thank you for bringing it up again. 100%. We're here to make it work, not go against each other.
I want to hold it.
Please begin.
Hi, I'm Pat Ivers. I'm an artist. I lived on the Lower East Side for 40 years. I worked at Danceteria and CBGB, so I am no stranger to nightclub life.
Nice.
However, the saturation in our neighborhood is so over the top. You say 2%? Go stand on my corner on any Saturday night and see the amount of vomit. And I'm wondering, how big are these bars and clubs that are coming in? That might be a difference in what the saturation actually looks like to us. I just, I hope that the nightlife mayor does not become an extension of a BID, which is how it feels to us. We feel like we're not having a voice in it. Because you are a former club owner, it's sort of the, the fox guiding, in charge of the hen house.
I'm also a lifelong resident.
I hope, all right.
Thank you, Pat. You're at your time.
Say that I'm not,
Thank you.
I hope that that's not true.
Thank you. I appreciate your confidence in me.
Well, it's not confidence. It's a benefit of the doubt.
I appreciate your hope. I hope to prove you wrong.
Hi, I'm Bill Bonbress. I'm the COO and a partner at the Tao Group, a hospitality company here in New York. And thank you, Ariel. Thanks for organizing this, and I thought you handled yourself very well tonight. I also want to thank Commissioner Menin, who we've had the opportunity to meet with, and all of the city agencies represented, who I get to work with on a regular basis. And we're just really proud to be part of the city, and very concerned with our employees and our guests. And it was good to hear from everybody this evening. And I wanted to just bring up one area of opportunity that we see, and a request for some help from the city and maybe a little bit of guidance in regards to all the livery drivers in front of our venues. And the limousines.
Livery or delivery?
Livery.
Okay.
Car services, all
Yes,
the car
okay.
services.
I just couldn't hear.
And it's really a problem, and I have a lot of confidence in our team in terms of taking care of the employees and the guests inside the four walls, but of our venues, but outside on the street.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you. Noted.
The next group of 5 will be Brendan Sullivan, Abby Aymon, Joe Ahern, Steve Austin, and David Stewart.
Yep, I'm ready. Let me get my thing so I can, I'm going to have to read faster now. Hi, my name's Abby Eamon. I'm a bar owner and a property owner in the East Village. I've lived there for 30 years. No complaints, knock wood. And Ariel was actually instrumental in helping me live my dream. Okay. In this current political climate that values capitalism over community, we will wind up with dozens more of those Mr. Purple nightclub type things designed for transients and paid for by wealthy hoteliers and investors, while known good neighbors are denied liquor licenses. Eastville Comedy Club lost their lease due to landlord greed, and rather than being licensed to relocate, it is now in Brooklyn. Immigrant is without the license they asked for. Paloma Rocket was grilled about the cuisine they'd be serving and denied a license to relocate. Club Coming was called on the carpet about DJs and live music as though they were a 1,000-seat venue instead of a postage stamp-sized bar. Watching these people, small business owners who have been contributing to our local culture, acting as good citizens, literally weeping at community board meetings while anyone with a giant budget simply bypasses them, is beyond frustrating.
Thank you, Abby.
Quick. Okay.
Is there a way to level the playing field so that the small bars can have just as easy a chance of getting approved for a liquor license as these people with unlimited budgets? And I mean, a hotel needs 7 bars. I don't know where, did all the people who were complaining about that hotel leave? I'd be outraged too.
Thank you, Abby.
In the middle?
Try.
Please, in the middle, please.
I'm willing to try. You taking
Let's
my
try.
minute right now, please? My name's Brendan J. Sullivan. I'm the author of the book Rivington Bazaars about nightlife here in New York City. I'm a friend, an advocate, and also, most importantly, a resident. Unfortunately, in 2009, when I was really at a very exciting point in my career, I was the victim of the march. The march unduly pinpoints our immigrant cultures and the people most vulnerable in nightlife in New York City. It is unfair. I don't understand how we can get so many people in a van, but we can't get them on the same email or on the same telephone. It's time for talks and not raids. We've been looking through the data, and I can't find another thing other than our cultural institutions that have to deal with the march. My question is this happening in other communities, or is it just in our cultural spaces? You have 5 seconds.
We basically look at conditions and complaints, and through our legal bureau and SLA, we make a determination of what locations. We don't target any bar or any club. We base it on response to issues at the location, and I have Lieutenant Russo here if he wants to quick overview of how we do the march with the legal. Matt, is he here?
Well, I mean, let's test his acoustic theory. Thank you.
On the side, please.
Thank you so much, Chief. Thank you. I think overall, the precinct and all city agencies, I think there's a general movement towards support for compliance before enforcement is necessary. And I think that's a direction that the Office of Nightlife, the city agencies, and the police department is working towards that evolution. Thank you.
Hello, Speed Read. My name is Joe Ahern. I grew up in Manhattan. I was raised a few blocks from here on 8th Avenue and 43rd Street. I've spent my life working with cultural spaces and nightlife programming, attending community board meetings throughout the city, and I recently started a tech platform called With Friends to build sustainable funding for cultural spaces everywhere. My concern is the preservation of culture in New York from getting wiped out by the rocketing expenses behind running the spaces where culture is born. Affordability is the biggest obstacle facing grassroots culture in New York. I've been working with Reverend Moose and Erica Rubin, who spoke earlier, on exploring the idea with governmental precedents throughout the country and the world. We believe a nonprofit focused on this issue needs to be established that works with the city but is not run by the city. Its mission should be to educate these cultural spaces on the funding opportunities, many of which were already discussed but that we don't know about, as well as educating funding bodies about the value that nightlife brings to culture at large, as well as eventually expanding those opportunities. If you believe in the importance of such an entity, please reach out to us afterwards, not just them, but all of you.
Thank you. I just want to give a heads up. We've been informed by the venue that after this group, because of union reasons, we must cease. But I want you to know that this is, just because it is the conclusion of the 5-borough listening tour, it is the beginning of the conversation. And we will have other meetings, and not to feel that this is the end of the conversation.
Can you hold it up just a little bit? Hey, hi everybody. My name is David Stewart. I am the co-chair of the 45th Street Block Association and also on the leadership committee for Neighborhoods United. So first, thank you all for coming. We really do appreciate it. I just wanted to mention that as I've been listening tonight, I've heard a few words that keep popping up over and over again. One of those is partnership, working together, and oversaturation. One of the things that I'd like to make very clear is that Neighborhoods United is not a group that is anti-bar. Quite the contrary. I'm probably going to go out and have a beer after this. I love nightlife.
I may join you.
Well, I love nightlife. So maybe I can get a couple extra seconds. But
yes, you can.
The point about that is that we need some help. Oversaturation is an absolutely real issue that is impacting the health, safety, and welfare of people, which, by the way, if you look at the SLA's prime directive, it's under statute, their primary directive is to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of New York, and the secondary point is to promote temperance, and when they can, to promote economic development. So just want to make that clear. The last point I'd like to make is...
Thank you, David.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to go on for 10 more seconds because there's a little bit of a... So one of the things I just wanted to mention is we want to help with solutions. We want to partner with you and find solutions because I love bars and bar owners. And I think when you mentioned some stats about the liquor industry being a $40 billion industry, right now there's 5 inspectors working at the SLA across all of Manhattan. So if there is a large multi-billion-dollar industry, we should be able to increase the number of inspectors. And folks up here, that's on you. I think you guys need to really look at the industry and you need to work with residents and bar owners and people who make their living from the nightlife.
Thank you, David.
So we can address those issues.
Thank you so much.
And by the way, we have a lot more solutions that we'd like to talk to you about.
This is what we're doing here. We're ready. When people say the community doesn't have a voice, this is your voice. And we're hearing you now, and we will be working together. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Good evening, my name is Steve Austin. I work with restaurants, hotels, hospitality groups on insurance, compliance, staffing, a whole bunch of different issues. Right now, there are a major crisis in labor staffing for hospitality, and my question was going to be, geared towards if there's a city or government body that's kind of focusing on staffing and the labor development for that for hospitality of the city. But what I'd also like to point out is thank you for being a part of the inaugural, which means first step, so thank you for that. And I'd just like to point out the hypocrisy of people yelling at you for things like enforcement, but yet they have a dog here with no service tag. Or somebody yelling at you about a $2,500 fine, but not knowing it's a retroactive fine. So I just feel that there's a lot of complaints right now for the first 3 to 6 months of a program that shouldn't be dealt that way. That's it.
All right, thank you so much. Well, it would only be fitting to have DM have the final word, wouldn't it? So go right ahead, DM.
All right. So I want to say thank you for all of you being here and having this town hall. I hope in the future you guys will have more and come into the areas that are most problematic. From Inwood to the Lower East Side to the East Village to Williamsburg. We really need residents to really have a real voice because we were not really invited to this by our community board. So a couple things I just really quickly want to say, and I can talk really fast, is I want to give some credit for the marches. And the reason I want to give them credit is because I feel that NYPD, FDNY, SLA, DOB working together has helped many of us. When a girl was locked into a bar overnight, and she was 20 years old and could not get out because she was passed out in the bathroom and no one found her, that march came and helped us and led to that place closing down. So I want to thank you for that. Don't conflate it with the DIY culture. In fact, we want to thank them for that. When there's a venue in our neighborhood that says it's an art space and then throws these wild parties and people are in basements and can't get out and the fire department has to come, they're helping us, they're keeping them safe. So I'm gonna give credit for that. So don't conflate those. I think the bill that Espanola is passing should not be passed to the city council. I think it needs more work on and looked at. But more importantly, I want to talk, one quickly, this is my question, and this is it. We've been here all night, thank you. Can you please explain to me how a club, restaurant, or sports bar is more culturally and economically significant than a bodega, a neighborhood bakery, or a cheese shop, or a shoe repair? How can you focus on one industry, create a whole nother layer to help a certain industry when we're bleeding our neighborhood small businesses? So I don't understand, and in fact, what you guys are doing in our neighborhood particularly, they're warehousing, meaning the landlords are pushing out our bakeries, pushing out these people, these small businesses because they're waiting for liquor licenses for $40,000 a month.
Thank you,
don't
Dan.
save one culture when I'm telling you there's businesses that we're losing. That is the culture of New
Okay,
York.
I hear you, and thank you for your statement. I don't think that anyone up here is negating the fact that the need for diverse businesses and neighborhoods is important in order to keep them neighborhoods. This is the Office of Nightlife, and this is an Office of Nightlife hearing, and these are the issues that we are addressing here tonight, which does not negate any of the other issues. I know that there has been concern or expression that the community has not had a voice. I hope that they feel that this meeting has been the beginning of having that voice. I know the industry has not felt that it has had a voice. This is also the beginning of having that voice. This office has been created because you have been heard, and it is the beginning of the conversation. These 5 town halls is not the end. Our office will be going to all neighborhoods and meeting with anybody who wants to meet with us. I thank you for showing up tonight, and we will continue to work together, and let's be optimistic with rainbows and unicorns for just 1 minute. Thank you so much. And thank you to Town Hall, thank you to the city and state agencies, to Nightlife community, and to my family who showed up tonight. Thank you so much.